Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And today we have an incredible guest with us, Shawn Léon Nowotnik. Shawn is an artist, author, filmmaker, and therapist who has dedicated his life to helping others navigate mental health, addiction, and the search for meaning. After experiencing a profound personal loss, he reevaluated his own path and has since been advocated for a new way of looking at fulfillment, one that challenges our cultural obsession with happiness. His latest book, FCK Happiness, The Search for Meaning in a World Gone Mad, Chasing Happiness, takes on this very topic. Shawn, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on the show, Shawn. Appreciate you coming on the show. So your book title alone, FCK, I'm not going to say the full word, happiness, makes a bold statement. So what inspired you to take such a direct and provocative approach? And what's the core message you want readers to take away?
So that's a funny story. Actually, about 2 years ago, when I finished my previous book, I started to think about what's next for me. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are thinking that in life too. Well, what's next for me? What's the next big thing? And I was like, well, I need to write another book. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, am I happy? And I couldn't come up with an answer for that. And then I started to think, well, are my patients happy? And it just really put me in a really precarious position. So I was like, what is happiness and how do you get it? So I Googled it. I went to the almighty Google and I Googled happiness. And of course, there's millions of things with that word happiness. But what was really interesting is this movie called Hector and the Search for Happiness. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie.
Yeah.
And I won't go into details about the movie, except for I found it interesting because I read the byline of the movie and it said, Hector is a psychotherapist questioning happiness. And I thought, well, this is really bizarre. Like, I'm a psychotherapist questioning my happiness.
Yeah.
And then I read the second line that said, Hector questions whether he's making his patients happy. And I thought, well, what is going on here? Am I like on some kind of reality TV show or something? Am I being punked or something? And so I was like, I have to watch this movie. So of course I watched it. I downloaded it and watched it. And it was wonderful. I was elated. I was happy. And I was like, I know what I'm going to do next. This is the answer. This is a sign. I need to write a book about happiness. So I spent the next year writing a book about happiness. So when it was done, I printed it out like I always do, get it ready to send to the editor. And I put some notes in the margin like, hey, do you understand this? Is this something I should expand on? Just little notes and stuff like that. And I got into the first chapter, and before the first chapter was over, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach that this isn't the answer, that somehow I missed great opportunity and happiness isn't the answer. And I was so frustrated because I realized I basically just spent the year writing a book about happiness I can't release. I don't believe in it. So I threw the manuscript down on my desk, and out of frustration, I wrote the F word across the top of the manuscript. And when I came back in the room, I looked at it and then it said, F happiness. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what the book should be about. And the more I thought about it, I was like, Hector was actually searching for meaningfulness. He really wasn't searching for happiness. I think happiness just makes a better title because we're all in love with the idea of happiness. So this provocative title really came out of a 1-year journey of frustration where I thought I was going to chase happiness and happiness was the answer. And then I realized, no, meaningfulness is the answer. And so what I want people to realize is that happiness is this fleeting thing that is very short-lived, but meaningfulness transcends time. And so that's why the book is called The Search for Meaningfulness in a World Gone Mad Chasing Happiness. So through this really frustrating process, I wound up with this title. I didn't want to be provocative just for the sake of being provocative. It just turned out of frustration.
Yeah, titles are really difficult to really try and storm up. I mean, obviously we've got the wonders of AI and everything else, but even so, you want to make it your own, don't you? Really? So it's quite amazing how you've done that, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like I said, I wish I didn't spend the year writing a book about something I didn't want to release, but it was, but I think we all have our journeys, right? And that's the beauty of it. It's like, and that's the meaningfulness too of the title, if you really think about it. It was not a happy journey to get to that title or to get to that book, but it was very meaningful because it gave me the power and the understanding of happiness to write a kind of a counter book to say, like, it's not about happiness, it's actually about meaningfulness.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your definition of meaningfulness anyway?
So I always give this really simple thing that people could relate to. Well, most people. So happiness is ordering a pizza. It shows up to your door in 30 minutes or less. It looks beautiful, it tastes beautiful, but a half hour later you're wondering what's for dessert and what am I going to watch on streaming? Right? So happiness is very fleeting. Let's take the pizza example for meaningfulness. To take the same exact pizza, surround yourself with beloved people, a spouse, a partner, dear friends, deep conversation that's moving and inspirational. That other example of happiness, you won't remember that pizza probably at all. I mean, maybe next time you order, you'll say, well, they did a good job, we'll order there again. But meaningfulness, you'll remember those conversations with your friends a week later, a month later, a year later, maybe even 10 years later. You might not remember the exact date, but meaningfulness, again, transcends time, and it's deeper than just the superficial happiness.
Well, that's quite interesting. Yeah. So you argue that the pursuit of happiness can actually be harmful. So can you break that down for us? What are some of the biggest ways society mislead us into chasing happiness instead of something more meaningful?
Yeah. So what's detrimental to finding meaningfulness and what happiness does is it has us questioning because we're looking around at other people and we're saying, why am I not happy? They seem happy. I'm not happy. And then we actually become depressed or sad or feel like we're missing out, right? This fear of missing out of some magic ingredient that everyone else has that we don't have. And I can tell you where this comes from. My belief, and a lot of other people in my field will assert this as well, is that it's the commercialization of happiness that tends to really mess with our minds. So if you think about advertisers, they're these slick weasels who weave these magical tales that if we buy their goods and services, we will be happy, and nothing could be further from the truth. Because that happiness is very fleeting. It sometimes lasts only minutes or hours or maybe even a few days if you're lucky. So think about happiness, that new car that you just purchased that's all sporty and everyone's so impressed when you post it on social media. Before you even make that first car payment, that happiness is gone. And the reality is like, okay, now I've got this huge car payment and I'm no longer happy. I need some other stimuli, right? The other thing is the social phenomena that we've had in the last 20 years, and that's social media is very detrimental to having a meaningful life because we're looking at these curated moments of happiness of other people, right? They're posting the best versions of themselves, the couple minutes of the day that a family is not fighting. It's like, let's all stop fighting for a minute to take a picture so we look wonderful to the rest of the world. And,
it's kind of like that cartoon. Wait.
Yeah. So, the reality is most of them are sitting at dinner, all staring at their phones, not talking, they're not happy. But they tell everyone, put your phones on. Let's take a picture real quick in this restaurant. And everyone's like, why is my family like theirs? And it's like, you're only seeing a snapshot of what their family looks like. It's not to say there's not real pictures. Because listen, there are people posting some really meaningful things on social media. Like for instance, if you got married and you posted your wedding pictures, I'm sure that is very meaningful. I'm sure that's not a facade. I mean, I hope if you're getting married, that's like one of the happiest moments of your life.
When your baby's first born, but obviously there's this thing about putting kids on and things like that. But of course, that's still a proud moment, isn't it? And things like that.
Yeah. So the other problem is what happens is we have this thing called the hedonic treadmill, and it's this psychological phenomena where we adapt to positive or negative life events and eventually return to our baseline level of happiness. So we talk about this in my industry a lot, is that again, the car purchase, the constant need to acquire goods and services to try to make ourselves feel happy. And it's this never ending cycle. So imagine a hamster on a wheel. That's what the hedonic treadmill is. It's like you get on it and you can't get off it. You got to keep consuming, you got to keep purchasing, because
Right.
it's never going to be truly fulfilling, because it doesn't
Right.
have meaning. I mean, yeah, you might get a nice sweater, but is that really going to change your life? Is it really going to be meaningful? No. And especially if you didn't need it, right? It's like, and then you go out and you buy something else. And we do this with all different things. And people don't really look at how it affects their life, and that they're just kind of just chasing something that you can never actually solve through this hedonic treadmill. So that's a really interesting phenomenon. So why do I bring that up? Well, I bring it up for one reason, is I talk about our baseline level of contentness or happiness. And if you live a meaningful life, your baseline will be much higher than someone who is not living a meaningful life. Therefore, you will almost always be more stable, more content, more satisfied with life. You'll live in the moment. You won't be searching out for these little things that are really irrelevant in the scheme of your life to give you these surges of dopamine and happiness. Not that dopamine's a bad thing, because it's a great motivator, but it's not ultimately fulfilling as much as meaningfulness.
Yeah, yeah. Well, two things obviously that came to mind was the hedonic treadmill, which it's the first time I've heard of it actually, but I must have heard of it before somewhere, not really taking much notice. And of course, yeah, you're right. People, especially people spending money on things they don't need. I've come across that before a few times. Now, that is kind of like, cars is a good example what you bring up a few times, because I am around friends that like their car. I like fast cars as well, actually. But really, you want a car that serves its purpose for where it is, especially with the price of gas. Well, we call it petrol, actually, and that's practical and more pragmatic. You don't really want a car that's, you're never going to drive more than a certain amount. There's speed limits all over, especially in London, in certain parts of the UK. And round town in the cities, you wouldn't really want a car that's fast, because you're just not going to drive it. And if you park it, there's a big danger that someone might do something to it. Maybe the safety side.
Yeah, yeah.
So having a pragmatic, practical car that maybe costs a fair amount of money, but would make sense, wouldn't it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it takes that emotional purchase again just to get that surge of happiness, and really is showing off. Let's say, because a lot of people do buy things, right, to show off. It's like, well, because this is a representation of me, and it makes me look more important, right? Because society looks at a few things, right? It's like, what is your job title? How much money do you make, and what possessions do you have? And then we assign a value to you as a human being. And what I'm saying is, I don't think that's the true value of a human. The true value is, are you living a meaningful life? Because all that other stuff is not going to matter. If you fast forward to you're on your deathbed, you're not going to say, well, I wish I would have bought a few more fancy cars and posted it on social media. No, you're going to say, why didn't I travel to go see the seven wonders of the world? Or why didn't I spend more time with my loved ones? Why did I work so much? Because I just acquired things that are not really important to me. Why didn't I read that great book that I always promised myself I would? Because I had to go work instead to buy a bunch of junk that I'm not really going to care about, right?
Yeah, or pay for that loan for that bunch of big
Yeah, right,
car,
right.
whatever,
Yeah, so there's a cost to everything. And one thing I would want people to walk away with it as well is our two greatest commodities in life is time and health.
Yes.
If you don't have time, you have nothing. If you don't have your health, well, you're not going to have much time.
No,
So,
that's right.
and it's really important. And I think if you're living a meaningful life, you really understand that. And you use your time very cautiously. Not to say you don't enjoy it, but you really think about, what am I investing in? Because there is a price to be paid for that. So again, that fancy car, the flashy, I don't know who needs $100,000 watch. I mean, I guess if you're a billionaire or a multimillionaire,
Well,
maybe you need it. But I can tell you, I could pick up a watch here for $20, and it'll tell time just almost as good as that watch.
Yeah. I mean, if it does something for you, like some people will use a smartwatch with things that will to the pulse rate, whatever. If it's doing something for you and it's not too expensive, that's fine. It's actually helping you. Like when you go jogging and things like that, it just saves you with all other kinds of things. It's helping. But if it's not, and like you say, it's
Yeah. So that's a good point you make. So I'm not anti capitalism. I'm not anti, feeling good about things. That watch is a perfect example of like that has utilitarian value. So yes, that is worth your, it's better than a $20 watch because now you know your heart rate, your steps per day, your sleep patterns. Totally great investment. And if it brings meaningfulness to you, it provides you better health and stuff like that. I think wonderful. I think again that makes sense, right? Because that's not for other people, that's for yourself. And that's the difference of what we talk about is intrinsic value and then external value. So we really want to make our decisions, the meaningful decisions tend to be intrinsic, where they're inside of us. They mean something to us. It's not about what other people think or how they're going to view us. And that's why it's really important to make decisions based on that. Is like, and how do we get there? Well, we look at what our core values are. And I talk about this in the book.
Yeah.
If we know our core values, then that's like a roadmap to our life, right? If I believe in servitude and being kind to others and being frugal or certain things, well, then I'm going to live my life in accordance with that. And when I don't, I feel like my life is in disarray, right? Because there's this weird dichotomy going on where I'm doing things that are against my core values and core beliefs. So it's really important for people to think about that. And I think as we go through life, we often don't reassess what our core values are or what they should be. And I would really recommend that to your listeners is like, take a moment and think about it. Because a lot of our core values come from our parents. And listen, our parents aren't necessarily bad, but they're not perfect. Most parents are not perfect. It's a learning process, right? And they set us on this path. And then we go to school and we're told to line up a certain way, sit a certain way, think a certain way. And then we get this narrative of who we are. And it's like, that may be who you were at that time as a snapshot in time, but that doesn't mean that's the rest of your life. So again, if you want to have a meaningful life, is reassess who you are and what you want your narrative to be, because that's really important. Like, I don't want my narrative to be as like Shawn is known as the guy who's got the fancy car and the big house. I don't care about that anymore. I did in my 20s. I probably did in early 30s. Now I'd rather have people say, that Shawn, he's a really humble guy. He's got good advice. He's very kind. He's pleasant to be around. And if they say I'm funny or something else or handsome, that's great too. But I'll take a little superficiality, a little surface stuff as well. I'm still human, right? But really, I'm just hoping that they find me to be a decent human being. And I think that's, again, when I really look at what my core values are, and it's like I want to surround myself with people that I think are decent human beings. I don't care what they drive. I don't care what their job title is. I only care about how they make me feel and if I can make them feel well in life. And it's a mutual relationship, of mutual admiration and respect.
Absolutely. Well, your journey has been deeply personal, shaped by loss and resilience. So, how has your own experience transformed the way you view fulfillment, and what role has meaning played in your healing process?
Oh, so yeah, I had an interesting journey. I'm sure most people out there listening have had interesting journeys as well. And so I started in Hollywood in 1997, and I worked there till about 2014. And I had lost my son to suicide. So I had this deep depression after losing him, and I had to reevaluate everything in my life. And that's where I had to do an assessment. So when you ask me like, well, how did I find meaning, or why did I find meaning? I was forced to by life happening. Now I could have put my head in the sand and just said life is over and I'm going to just stay depressed forever. And I don't think that would have been the best use of my life. So what I did do is researched psychology and tried to understand why people did what they did. And this really strange thing happened. My sister kept nagging me to go get some therapy after I lost my son. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not my thing. And then she's like, well, how about go to this group therapy? And she kept asking me to go. And I finally said, like, listen, if you stop nagging me, I will go to a meeting. And I went, and I didn't really necessarily get a lot of personal value out of it because I kind of felt it was a little sad because everyone's talking about the loss they just went through. But what I did enjoy is afterwards, some people came up to me and they said, wow, you really brought some levity to the group and you've told funny stories about your son. Most people are just talking about how sad and tragic the loss is. And I said, well, that's just how I want to remember him. And that's how I remember him, as just the happy, loving person he was. And anyway, so I agreed to go to a couple more groups. And after a while, people started asking me why I wasn't a therapist. And I thought, well, this is crazy. I'm a Hollywood guy. I'm a creative guy. What are you talking about? But something really strange happened. That one night I was laying there trying to sleep and I could not sleep. Again, I don't know what it's divine intervention or what, but I was like, yeah, maybe I should think about becoming a therapist. I could really try to change the world. It'd be the best use of my time. It'd be extremely meaningful after this loss. If I could save one person, like, wouldn't that be adding value to the world? And within 2 weeks, I was back at school studying psychology for a master's. Wound up going through that whole process, became a psychotherapist. And I feel like, not that my life wasn't meaningful in Hollywood, because it was fun. I created some cool stuff. I hung out with really fun people. I had an experience that most people will never, ever experience, walking red carpets and, hanging out with the elite of the world. But I feel like now, again, is the best use of my time. Like, I've really found my true calling. I'm living the best narrative I can be. I get to write books in my free time, and that reaches a broader audience. I get to do fun stuff like your show and things like this, and spread other messages to just a large group of people, and I think that's really meaningful. Now, I could have just stayed with what I was doing and everyone was impressed with that, but I really searched again. Like, what I tell people do is, like, what are your core values? What are your needs? What's the best use of your time? And if we slow down just for a minute, even on the weekend, and think about that, we can have some really profound thoughts and realizations about where we should be in life. And I think when we're in line with what we're supposed to be doing in life, life is really a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Shawn, this has been such a powerful conversation. I think many of us get caught up in the happiness trap without even realizing it. And your insight has given us a fresh perspective on how to find something more lasting meaning. So before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
So the best thing to do is go to my website, which is Shawn Léon Nowotnik, which is ShawnLeonNowotnik.com. And that has my whole history in Hollywood, as well as what I'm doing now with books. And it also has where I do psychotherapy out of and stuff like that. So it's kind of all encompassing. The other thing is, go to Amazon, pick up, F Happiness, or pick up my Habits of Successful People book. And you can find a little bit more about me and about ways to help yourself and change your life. Those are the two best places. Some of your listeners are in America. They can track me down at
this is global. This show's global. So
yeah. So yeah, if someone wants, psychotherapy, I could be found at Blue Lavender Clinical Services in St. Charles, Illinois. And if I'm not available, which I'm pretty booked up these days, I have a wonderful team of people that I work with that could help people who are struggling out there with mental health or trying to find their narrative or whatever they need help with. So those are all great places to find me. But yeah, just Google me. There'll be plenty of information about me.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for today's episode. So, Shawn, a huge thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. This is a lot of fun.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. And remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.